here we go.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, everyone. Dang it.
I beat you. I beat you again. I'm just jumping in. Welcome to the Tim and April Show. I am April LaJoy.
I'm Tim Whitaker.
And this is our show. And
This is our show.
We can start it however we want.
Yeah. Who cares about engagement or, the hook for the algorithm on YouTube so people keep watching? We do whatever we want on this show. We
do what we want. This is our show, and you can't tell us what you want us to. Actually, you can, because we are we are only as good as the algorithm lets us be. So we will adjust. Actually,
in fact, we actually want your feedback. If you can leave a comment below and tell us what you think about this episode, that'd be really great.
Yeah, are we doing okay? Do you like?
Yeah, we doing good?
Please tell us.
How about you, podcast audience? I mean, it's funny. The podcast audience gets a very different experience because it's just audio, right? And I will say, April, whenever I listen back to our show on audio, I'm like, we do have good chemistry. It just feels like two friends talking. So I don't know. I don't want to sound biased, but I think that we are pretty decent. And hopefully our audience feels that way too, because I love doing the Tim and April Show. It's so much fun.
It is fun.
It's a great way to let off some steam.
We've got chapstick and chapped lips and things like chemistry.
What a deep cut! Yeah, let's go. I would play that here, but then we'll get demonetized. So thanks,
that's a Reliant K song for those that have no idea what that was. I do have chap lips though in the winter.
That's a great song.
And chap lips and things like it's chapstick and chap lips.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
Well, before we get rolling, yes, I saw you make the head move, so I don't know. Listen, friends, a couple of things. Number one, if you're new to the show, welcome in. We go live every Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern, covering some of the headlines in the news with our Christian nationalist commentary and spin. And also, we release an episode every Monday that's pre-recorded like this one. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel or make sure you follow us on podcasts. Leave a rating and review on podcasts and a comment on YouTube if you're watching. Also want to mention we do have merch officially. Okay, we have this great mug. I commit sins of empathy is what it says. And I'm wearing one of our other shirts. It says Proud Sinner, Empathy. It's our way of kind of clapping back at the toxic empathy crowd by saying, look, if you think empathy is sinful, then call me the chief of all sinners because I'm empathetic.
That's like a double whammy though, because pride is already one of the deadly sins. Don't know if you saw one of the million of memes that were passed around last month in June.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So you not only are you proud, which is a sin, but you're proud to be a sinner,
which is a highway to hell. Yeah, I'm just nosediving.
What a rebel you are. How does it feel?
Well, it feels great. And speaking of hell,
wow,
how's that?
Segue.
I'm trying to pick up.
Yeah.
We are going to be talking about today about the rapture.
Not really hell.
Well,
it's another end times terror. It was another form of religious trauma similar to hell.
Yes. It's like evangelical purgatory in a way. You're kind of in this weird holding space on earth for some people before God really smites you down. So today we're talking about the rapture and how that impacted not only our childhood, but just how it impacts the world around us. And then I think we're going to watch a few trailers from some top-tier Left Behind movies today, and we'll kind of rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as the fear factor goes. I do want to start off, though, just by kind of giving the audience a very brief overview of what we're actually talking about, because some people, actually, I would say the fortunate souls out there who didn't grow up believing this idea of the rapture or hearing about it, I'm going to educate you today a little bit. So the rapture comes out of this theology called dispensationalism. It's a very fancy word. And essentially, this theology believes that God works throughout human history in different dispensations. So there's usually 7 different dispensations, periods of time where God's doing something unique. And in the Christian theology, one of the big distinctions between a dispensationalist and someone who's not that is how they view the role of Israel and how they view the role of Christians. Okay, in typical Christian theology, the church is like, in a sense, the new Israel as far as how God is working through a certain people group to kind of restore the world or bless the world. In dispensationalism, they believe that God has two distinct plans for the Jewish people and for Christians. And a big part of this theology is that they believe that at any moment, the true Christians can get raptured. They can just vanish into thin air with their clothes left behind, which brings up all sorts of questions, but we'll get into that later. And essentially, that will start what's called the tribulation. And the tribulation is a period, and this is all debated, by the way. Some dispensationalists say the tribulation will happen first, then we'll get raptured. Everyone argues about this, but the general rule of thumb is that Christians get raptured, everyone else gets left behind, and the world essentially goes to shit. Okay? Tons of battles, tons of death.
What you're forgetting an important part, though.
Oh,
the first
sorry.
it's a 7-year Great Tribulation,
right.
and
That's
the first 3.5 years are full of peace. And then the second 3.5 years is total chaos, starvation, wars, and all the things.
This is where the Antichrist...
Led by the Antichrist. Yeah.
Right. The Antichrist comes on the scene. And again, I'm kind of giving the caricature of this, of like what's called maybe like pop rapture theology, but essentially the Antichrist will usher in the one world government. We're all going to use the same currency. There's going to be peace on earth. And then eventually God's going to judge the world and come back in a fury. And just, it's going to be like, AR-15 Jesus just going to town. And a lot of people are going to die, including a lot of Jewish people. And this theology is what leads to the ideas that, God has a special plan for Israel, so America must protect Israel at all costs because it plays a role into the end times theology. That's kind of where all this comes from. Now, if you want a deeper dive on this, we actually just dropped a full explanation of this theology on the TNE podcast with someone named Daniel Hummel, who's like literally one of the most authoritative scholars on dispensationalist theology. So if you want all the nerdy stuff, you can go over there and listen to it. I just wanted to give the audience a general idea of what this rapture theology is. Now, here's the kicker, though. A lot of people, including me, including you, were taught that this is just what the Bible clearly teaches. And you're kind of given the assumption that this theology is what every Christian everywhere believes. But that's not true. That's not true. In fact, this theology was invented recently by someone named John Nelson Darby. And he lived between 1800 and 1882. That's right. This theology is about 160-ish years old, give or take. Maybe, it's in that ballpark. And so this is a very new idea. And I need to also mention that this is a very uniquely American evangelical theology. Mainline Protestants don't believe this. Global Christians don't have this view of the end times. This is very much a fringe idea that's new, and yet, for how we grew up, was taught as like absolute truth and shapes a ton of foreign policy when it comes to America and the Middle East. And again, you can go over to our TNE podcast, my episode with Daniel Hummel, to get all the details. But that's what we're talking about today. Because I'm not sure if you know, April, but there's been some violence that's happened recently between Israel and Iran and America. Yeah. And a lot of people, including Josh Howerton, by the way, were like, oh my gosh, is this the end times? Is this when like the great battle is going to happen? In fact, maybe we should play that clip. Should we play that Josh Howerton clip so people can get an idea of what these folks believe? Do you think that?
Sure, but I just want to say real quick something about John Nelson Darby.
Go ahead.
Put him in the burn book. Right? If you have a burn book, he's in there with a few other people that I have some choice words for if I ever meet them one day in the afterlife. Because, not only did he come up with this theology that scarred millions and millions of people, including myself, but there's like a lot of people that think he stole the idea from a 14-year-old girl's weird dream, like a vision. Her name was Margaret MacDonald. So you can look it up. Do your own research.
Look it up. Okay, let's pull up this clip of Josh Howerton. I just think it's really worth watching for folks who really did not grow up with this ideology. And Josh Howerton is a megachurch pastor. This clip has been shared over 250,000 times. And this really summarizes this dispensationalist theology and how they view the end times and certain things that happen in the Middle East at any given time. No matter when you live, if you're alive in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, there's always some preacher putting pieces together, asking the question, are we at the end of the world? Here's what Josh Howerton said.
The Bible says that this attack at the end of time will come on Israel from the north and the south, and that will be the final war, the war to end all wars that will usher in the end of time. Now here's the question. Are we entering into that war right now? In Ezekiel 38 and 39, it mentions nations Gog and Magog. That would be like modern day Russia. It also mentions Persia in Ezekiel 38 and 39. That corresponds to modern day Iran. What we do know is that if Iran enters the war, that Turkey and Russia will probably go with them. Right behind them will be North Korea and China. And if all of the world powers start attacking from the north and the south, start trying to attack Israel, that could be the war to end all wars that ushers in the end of history. You may be going right now like, bro, this is heavy, man. Can I just say this? There's a lot of hope in Ezekiel 38 and 39 because we know how that battle ends. But the Bible says exactly at the moment when it looks like all hope is lost for the descendants of Isaac, that the Lord himself, Jesus Christ, will descend. He will take the battlefield and he will win the war once and for all time.
There you go. I mean, I just think we need to highlight, April, how violent this idea is and how happy Josh seems to be preaching. Like, he's smiling while saying this. You're talking about the mass extinction of billions of people. I mean, in fact, a lot of these folks cling onto a verse, I think it's in Revelation, that essentially says, like, the blood will be so high it's up to the bridle of the horse, right? That's
blood.
Gruesome. That's gruesome.
Yeah.
You know, and these people are like, are we here yet? Is this the end of the world? Wild that they're so excited.
And that
if Josh
like
believed that, you would think he'd be sad. You know, sad
that
about
peppy,
it.
excited music that he put behind it too, of like, like it's some kind of Marvel movie. That is a part, I think, of believing in the rapture, is this excitement because I mean, think about it. You don't have to worry about the world's problems. You don't have to solve it because you know what happens in the end. And so you can try to do things to try to make it happen quicker, but it's basically a get out of death free card for Christians
100%
who believe in this.
Right.
So there are so many problems with this theology, not to mention what it traumatizes people. It's silly. It keeps evangelicals from actually trying to solve problems because God is in control and it's all going to happen. But then also it makes them completely deny climate change. Like rapture theology is directly correlated with evangelicals fighting any sort of policy to help the climate.
Right. Because they believe that the world's going to burn anyway. So why even try to stop it? You know, hey, God's going to make a new, we're all going to be in heaven one day. This world won't be here. So God's in control. So who cares? In fact, remember, was it a year and a half ago where you and I covered an Ali Stuckey clip of her essentially saying that? Like, look, God controls the seasons. We really shouldn't worry about climate change, right? It absolutely displaces human responsibility to take care of the planet, take care of our neighbors, because, oh, well, look, guys, we're going to be off of this sinking boat anyway one day, and so the rest of you are damned. It doesn't really matter. It's incredibly dehumanizing when you think about it. And also, I mean, look, Iran, Israel, Russia, they don't give a shit about this theology. Like, they're not thinking about, oh, or is this the end times through an evangelical lens? Like, it is. It's so wild to see someone like Josh or any of these evangelicals be so confident in a brand new, really made up theological idea about the end times and making it seem like this is so true as we watch other countries with no awareness of this idea. You know, I guess they're in their mind, they're just being used as chess pawns for God. It's a very, I don't know, it's a very Eurocentric, privileged position to hold. And these people, many of them are giddy for this bloodbath to happen, which is it's just unbelievable to me.
Well, I remember we talked about this briefly in our live from like 2 lives ago about how I was so mad when I realized when the rapture became a belief system in modern day Christianity, because that's never taught. It was presented to me as if the Apostle Paul was waiting on the rapture himself, because they use that verse in Thessalonians where he says, like, we will be caught up. They use caught up to meet the Lord in the air. That's the verse where a lot of rapture theology hinges on. And then obviously all the weird stuff in Revelation. And then there's a couple verses in Daniel too, where, like,
Ezekiel, etc.
Yeah. They bring a whole bunch of like random verses out of the context of which they are written and put them together to form this brand new idea, but it's presented as if this is the most normal. It's presented as essential as Jesus Christ dying and rising again.
100%.
It's like they're like, it's just right there, and I believed it too. I think I said earlier that Margaret MacDonald was Irish. She was Scottish. Just want to correct that as I said that, but it doesn't matter. But when I learned, and it was really maybe 5 years ago that I first stopped believing in the rapture, because I had no reason not to believe it.
Right.
I just believed that interpretation of things. And when I actually Googled it, because I need to learn where this came from. As soon as I found out that it was not a belief in Christianity until the 1830s, it was the quickest theology to throw in the trash, because that theology and belief system harmed me. It was trauma. Like I've shared before, I've thought I've been left behind for like a solid 20 minutes when I was 13. And I usually talk about it in a really joking way, but it was traumatizing. If you're 13 and you think that your whole family has vanished and you are now left alone on earth to like become a underground Christian, are going to be persecuted because there was also this like, I'm gonna go on a rant. Can I go on a rant?
Yeah, go on a rant.
Evangelical teaching it's just so conflicting, especially as a child, but you don't have the cognitive skills to quite decipher that it is conflicting, so you just believe it all because you're a kid. Like, you're taught that it doesn't matter what you do, God will forgive you. You just say a prayer, you ask Jesus to forgive you, to come into your heart, and you are immediately going to heaven. And that's like the beauty of the cross. It's the scandal of grace. It doesn't matter what you've done. God loves you so much.
Yeah.
And also, don't ever sin or tell a lie or expose your shoulders or get too angry, or get too competitive or lose your temper. And just in case you do a little sin right before the rapture. Because you don't want to get left behind, because you can get left behind. Because they were always talking about there's going to be Christians in the Great Tribulation because they got left behind because they did a little bit of sinning that they hadn't asked forgiveness for. So there was like this constant, like, you can never lose your salvation. Oh, but you might lose your salvation, which just puts you in a constant state of fear and anxiety.
100%. So I was taught in like the American Calvinist tradition that I was more a part of, what they'll say, because this is a big debate, right, between like the Arminius theology of can you choose your salvation versus Calvinism, which says that you're predestined. And I was taught that, once saved, always saved. But then I was taught too that, well, maybe you were never saved to begin with because the fruit didn't match up with your life. Right. So that's how they got around this idea, because I was like, okay, well, if I had this thing happen to me, if I asked God for forgiveness, if I walked down the aisle and I meant it, then no matter what, God always loves me and I'm forgiven because he forgave me for all of my sins, past, present, and future. But then I was taught, well, if you don't live a lifestyle that is pleasing to God, it makes you question if you were ever actually saved or regenerate in the first place. So I was always thinking about that too, of like, wait, are all of my sins forgiven? Or am I always like thinking about, am I really not a true Christian or not? Because this thing in my life, which, by the way, to your point, sins were like you said the F word, or you made out with your girlfriend too long, or whatever.
You said, oh my God.
Right. Or you watched like a movie.
That was taking God's name in vain.
Totally. Yeah. So I agree. There is that huge like cognitive dissonance between the songs and the theology of like scandalous grace, the reckless love of God, you're always forgiven, you're welcome into the family, versus like, well, always check your heart for sin, because you just never know. I'm kind of curious for you, April, like how much the rapture played a role in like your family dynamic, because my dad, he really didn't believe it. Like, so for me, rapture theology was around, the Left Behind movies were around, the idea of being raptured was definitely in the air I was breathing. But at home, my dad was one of these, I just think that the end's going to happen. Like, the end of the world's going to happen, and there's no tribulation, there's no real rapture. We're either here or we're there, the end. So it was never like really instilled into me as a child of like, hey, be on the lookout for the rapture. I kind of picked that up later on as I kind of moved through my evangelical tradition from charismatic to more, from Calvinist to more charismatic theology. And even then, I will tell you that there was a time, I don't know, maybe 13 years ago, I had to be like in my mid-20s, maybe early 20s, and it was Christmas morning, and I woke up, and I couldn't find my family. I could not find them anywhere. And even though I was not deeply embedded in rapture theology as a kid, I still was like, well, did it happen? Like, did the rapture act? Because I really couldn't find them. Like, they weren't upstairs, downstairs. I was yelling for them, could not find them. Turns out they were outside on like the back porch. But for a minute there, I was like, wait, maybe the rapture did happen. So even though I wasn't fully indoctrinated into the rapture theology, it still stuck with me even well into my adulthood. So I'm kind of curious for you what your experience was like.
I want to get there, but I just have questions on the back porch. Did you have multiple porches?
So we sat on like 3 acres of property, and so our porch was like, it was like a big like outside porch that kind of went back a ways. So
okay, that makes sense. It was like, wow, that's a lot of porches.
Yeah,
like,
no,
not the porch, but the back.
It was like the very porch. Back end of the porch that I couldn't see.
Sorry, didn't mean to derail. You said that.
No, you're good.
Wow.
You're good.
I was trying to get a visual of the story.
Multiple porches, yes.
Yeah. It's so funny to hear you talk about Calvinism, which I know you're a Calvinist, but even in my weird charismatic upbringing, we thought Calvinists were so stupid. We're like, how could you believe that it was predestined and that God pre-selects and like the elect? Like, what's the point of doing anything then?
That's what let me out of it. Eventually, I was like, wait, if it's all been predestined, then like even if I leave, I was predestined to leave. Like, it doesn't make it okay. So I'm just doing what God wants me to do. You know, I guess I'm one of the reprobate now.
I think that's the funniest part to me, because like it being out of that in hindsight, I know I believed some really stupid things too, but it's just people get their little clicks and you think, oh no, everything I believe is totally normal. I believe we're gonna get sucked up into the sky naked, but I don't believe in predestination, you psycho.
Right, you weirdos.
I know. Yeah, so the rapture was a huge part of my upbringing. I mean, my dad was an evangelist, so he preached. He would do like end times series, and I was really invested. Like, I wanted to know everything I could. So I remember like my dad would sit at the kitchen table and I would just ask him questions, and he would draw little maps and he would say Russia, and you know, he would do the whole Gog and Magog thing. Because I mean, that was just part of the world that we were in. I remember I was probably 7 or 8. And I remember one morning, because we were homeschooled, me and my brothers, and we were like, I think the rapture's happening today. And we were so excited because we were really little kids. So we hadn't quite got to the fear of being left behind yet. It was just this exciting thing that could happen when Jesus comes back. And we thought Jesus was so awesome. And we were kids, and I still love Jesus. And I remember we stood at our kitchen window and just stared up in the sky, and we would count 10, 9, 8, because we thought when we got to 0 that Jesus would come back. And then he didn't. And then I'd be like, okay, we just got our timing wrong. Let's do it again. I don't know how long we did that for, but we did it for a long time. And so we just felt like at any moment. I mean, I grew up where the rapture was imminent. It could happen at any time, any place. You would be when you least expected it. Me and my brothers, we would sing before my dad would preach in churches all over the world, and like we would take turns saying little things like Jesus loves you, and Jesus died on the cross and rose again. And then one of our main ones that we would say is, are you ready for the rapture? That was like part of the, I don't know, just the things that we would say. And we would witness to different, when we'd go into restaurants, we would witness. That'd be one of the things too. And then people would be like, what's that? And then it would give my dad an opportunity to share the gospel. And we watched probably every straight to VHS Rapture home movie that we could, which was traumatizing. I read the Left Behind series for kids.
Yep, they had a kids version. That's right.
They had kids version, and that's the one I read. I was probably 9 or 10. And let me tell you, The only thing that's different from the kids version to the adult version, content-wise, is that it just happens to kids. Kids still got their heads chopped off. There were still guillotines. There was still the Antichrist. It is like a persecution kink is what those books are. But I ate
Wait,
them
wait,
up.
wait, wait,
I
wait, wait,
love
wait,
those.
pump the brakes. You're telling me that in these books, these Left Behind Kids books that are made for kids ages 10 to 14, there were stories of kids having their heads chopped off?
Guillotines, yeah. I don't remember if it was a kid that got it, but it was definitely like their parent. Like people got heads chopped off that were Christians in these books.
Isn't this coming from the same world that's so worried about kids being indoctrinated in school and like, being over-sexualized? And here you are as a child reading books about people having their heads chopped off and the end of the world full of blood and violence and fear.
Yeah, it's the same type of people though that would take their 5-year-olds to see The Passion of the Christ. Which is like maybe the most violently gory movie out. Like it is up there.
I was, I think, 12 or 13.
We've talked about this. We're the same age.
No shade to my parents, because my parents really are amazing human beings. Back in the day, my parents were, and they admit, a little overzealous with how strict they were. Fair enough. So this story is not a knock on them. It's funny now. But we walked out of Home Alone 3, the movie. We walked out of it.
I love that one, actually.
I just saw it for the first time like a year ago because I was allowed. I'm like, you know what, Mom and Dad, I'm watching this. I'll watch this on Disney Plus. So I rewatched it. It was good. But as a kid, I walked out of it. We got like 5 minutes in. There was a picture of a girl in a bikini. We walked out. And at age 13, my parents brought me to watch The Passion of the Christ with kids from my neighborhood, hoping that they would get saved essentially. And we all got back in the van and were just silent after watching that movie because of what we just watched. I mean, literally the camera does not shy away from the back of Jesus being split wide open and chunks of flesh being ripped off his back. And I'm like 13 watching this. I'm like, wow. So it is interesting. It is interesting to see the stark difference.
Well, because they believe they believe it. They believe in this absolute truth. They're like, well, if this is going to scare people into following Jesus, into doing the right thing, then it's somehow worth it. It's not indoctrination if you think you're indoctrinating them with the quote unquote truth or whatever. Right. My brother, I was not the only one who thought I was left behind. One of my brothers thought we used to travel around in a motorhome when we would go to different churches. And so we were at an RV park staying. My dad was preaching somewhere. I don't know where we were, but we were probably on a walk, and my brother Andrew couldn't find us and literally called the cops because he thought he was left behind. And he found us while he was on the phone with the cops, and he was like, never mind.
But my gosh.
It's like so it's traumatizing. It is a very scary belief system. But then also there was such a desire to be persecuted, because people want to be persecuted. Like American Christians have this like kink about it.
They do.
And I think, it's not just the Rapture. I think a lot of it started for me around Columbine with the whole story around Cassie, the shooter went to Columbine High School and said, do you believe in God? Yes or no? She says yes. So she shoots her. That later turned out to not be an accurate story. Right. But it started this whole movement of, I remember being in kids' church and being like, kids, are you going to, if a gunman comes into your school and has a gun to your head and asks you believe in God, would you deny Christ, or would you be willing to die to save your soul? And I remember being like a little kid and being like, I would die, and then turning that into so there would be moments where I would be disappointed knowing that I would make the rapture, because there was a piece of me that wanted to be left behind so that I could be part of the persecuted church that would save all the souls in the end times.
I still have my DC Talk Voice of the Martyrs books.
The Fox's Book of Martyrs? Oh, no, that's different.
This is Jesus Freaks, DC Talk. Yeah. This is volume 2. I had 1 and 2. It's the stories of revolutionaries who changed the world, fearing God, not men. And look, I'll be honest with you. I was a kid on the toilet reading this book and thinking to myself, I'm not sure if I could watch my family be tortured and not deny God. I might lie and just say, no, I deny God so my kid doesn't die, and thinking I must be a terrible Christian who doesn't have enough faith or conviction as a Christian to live out my beliefs because I wouldn't watch my kids be tortured in front of me. And again, like, I want to be clear. I'm not necessarily giving any shade to the real stories that could be in this book, for sure. But it was just taught, like, if you're not like these people, do you even have real faith as a Christian? Do you really love God if you're not willing to be tortured or have your family or friends tortured, you know, in order for you to stand true in the faith? That's a very, like, those are just... That does something to you deeply as a child, right? As a teenager, especially because I think as a teen, right, going from like 14 to like 20, your brain is just primed for radicalization. Like because you're just there as a kid, like you're exploring yourself. Your mind is still, you have some kind of formation, but not nearly enough. People are still forming it, and I just think that you're willing to find extreme beliefs very palpable and very like, interesting. Especially, I'm not sure if there's a gender difference here, you know, broadly speaking, but I will say as a young man full of testosterone, I was like, yeah, I want a battle to fight and a beauty to rescue, wild at heart. Like, I'm ready, Braveheart. Yeah, like I want to just storm the kingdom for Jesus. Like, that was I want to storm the kingdom for Jesus, because that didn't happen yet. But my point is that I think that like a lot of these beliefs really become cemented at those ages if you don't really think through them critically, and they can create some pretty radical folks who do some pretty radical things ultimately. I mean, think about the one, what was the missionary, was it John Chow, who went to India a couple of years ago to that island that's never been touched by like modern humanity, and there's a people group there that like they have not been at all impacted by the modern world, and it's illegal to go to that island, both for your own safety but also for the people who are there, because they haven't been exposed to any of the germs that we have, etc. And like he snuck onto the island to try and evangelize them, and he was killed. And he was seen as like a complete martyr of the faith for doing this bold act, when in reality he jeopardized the well-being of those people, because his belief was that if they don't receive Christ as their savior, they're going to burn in hell for all time. Right? I mean, really, I think his name was John. He just took that belief to its radical conclusion and logical conclusion that, oh, these people are going to burn in hell. I have to do what I can to witness to them so they convert to my religion, so they don't end up in hell forever.
Right, and that was the whole point of like, there is no amount of torture or death that you could experience on this earth that would be worse than going to hell for eternity.
Right.
So there was like this push from a young age, and it like, and I want to be clear, like, my mom listens to the show, so like I love my parents. I think that they did the best that they could, because they also believed these things that were passed down to them, and we were in an environment where everyone was believing these things, and it was very, I mean, it's a bubble. It's a high control community. There are barriers in place intentionally to keep people inside. The way you demonize outside voices, the way you demonize people who leave the church, it's never because they have a valid reason to leave. It's because Satan's led them astray. So you have the way that they demonize doubts and questions and all of this. Like my parents were doing the best that they could with the same knowledge that I had, right?
Of course. Of course.
But also it was a lot. I mean, I think I'm going to tell, I am very grateful every day that my children have no idea what the rapture is. And they don't even know what hell is.
Yep.
Like a year or so ago, my oldest daughter, she was 7 or 8 at the time, she went to Beecher and asked them, Daddy, what is hell? And so Beecher was like, oh boy, whew, like got ready for the conversation.
I've been waiting for this moment, you know.
So Beecher was like, oh, this very in-depth, like child-appropriate view of like, well, some people believe that's where really bad people go when they die, and you know, give this really childish thing, this long, thought out, well-articulated answer.
Yeah, right.
And then Raylan, my daughter, she goes, so that's what Lizzo means when she says good as hell. And Beecher was like, Oh, no, that's not. Just forget
scratch all of that.
I just said.
You heard nothing.
Yeah, forget it.
That is funny. But honestly, I am I mean, look, I don't think my parents listen to the show at all, but I to be clear, like my parents really raised us very well overall. We had a very welcoming home, very loving home. But the hell thing, and it wasn't even really from them; it was just from the churches that we were in. But like, I think about that for my kids. Like, I don't want anyone, my parents or any other faith leader, telling my kids about hell, especially at such a young age, where it's not appropriate for them to know about that, right? Because you're right, April. Like, as we've discovered, the idea of hell is hotly debated. It is certainly far from being an objective truth about what happens when you die. And it's not fair to have kids have that looming over them, treating it in their minds as like a fact when it's just not, right? But I think about that as well. Like when that happens, how I'm gonna have to handle that conversation with my kids.
Yeah. I mean, so Andrew, again, my brother, when he was 6, he went through, I don't know how long it was. It felt like a long time, for several months. He would say, I think, after everything he said, because he didn't want to accidentally lie and then sin. And then if he were to die or the rapture happened, he would miss it. Like, he was so terrified of accidentally doing a sin because he didn't want to be left behind. So like me and my other brother, we mocked him relentlessly for this because we thought it was so funny, which in hindsight was awful because he was just traumatized. But we were like, Andrew, are you a girl? And he would say, no, I think. And then we would just laugh at him, which, Andrew, if you're listening, I'm sorry that we did that. But like, he was genuinely, that's trauma. Yeah. That's just trauma that you're inflicting on children. And I, intention doesn't negate impact, and I understand, like, but people have good intentions and are still, this theology is traumatizing if you grow up in it. And I do just want to say too, this is a sidebar, we want people to change. I've been seeing a lot, like with this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but there are some people who are starting to wake up out of MAGA and Christian nationalism as things get worse and worse. We want them to change. And I've been seeing a lot of people that are just kind of mocking and demonizing people and saying that they were stupid for getting caught up in it. And as much as I understand, and there are many people that I want to shake and be like, you're being so stupid right now. Like, I get that. And also, this is what we want. Like, the point of activism is to bring change and to get people to leave harmful ways and to come into new ways. And I think it's a much healthier and a more progressive, like, if we actually want to enact change, the better path to do that is to, create soft landings for people, say, welcome, don't give them platforms right away, but just say, listen, you were indoctrinated. I know what it's like to be indoctrinated, and I just think we should have some grace for those people that are 100%. Waking up.
That's one of the reasons why we talk about Christian nationalism and evangelicalism is because we believed a lot of it, or we're on the path to believing a lot of it, right? So we poke our fun because we're really poking fun at ourselves because that was us, right? But to be fair, and you're totally right, we're on the same planet with people who believe things that are wildly different from us. So, and by the way, live and let live, right? The problem, of course, the reason why we're so passionate about this is because Christian nationalism really demands full assimilation into it for it to be functional. If people break out of that, if they are waking up finally to the reality that the Trump administration is kidnapping our immigrant neighbor in horrible, inhumane ways and wants to change, what I think we don't do is shame them further. That's not, because what kind of welcoming environment is that, right? You want to welcome them in and say, hey, welcome. I was there too. I held these views as well. I understand what you're going through. And also, we poke a little bit of fun at it as well because we need to cope with it somehow. So I agree. I don't think that, like, especially on the internet, relentlessly shaming people who are trying to change their mind, I don't think it does them any favors. It doesn't do us any favors. And it doesn't give them, it doesn't give them an option for a better path forward, right? And the whole point is that we want people to embrace repentance, churning and going the other way from beliefs that have caused so much damage to their neighbor. And that includes us, right? You and I still find ourselves at times making mistakes, right? Having views that maybe we didn't realize were problematic. And we try our best, although not imperfectly, right, to churn and go the other way still because we grew up in this world and we live in a society that is built on supremacy. Of course, we're going to internalize some of that stuff. So I agree completely with you that it's important to hold space for those people. Yeah.
I mean, I'll still get comments every once how I've changed. Am I frozen?
Not anymore.
Oh, okay, cool. I've gotten a few comments over the years when I've talked about how I changed from people that are like, well, you're an idiot for letting them indoctrinate you. Like people that just think people are like, there are really, really smart people that get indoctrinated, and there's really smart people that get drawn into cults. Like there's something appealing about cults, which is why people go into them. And also, I was a toddler. You know,
Totally.
like there's people who did not grow up in high control religion.
Right.
Just like don't understand. It's not so simple as just not being stupid.
Right, because you're taught. First off, let's be honest, right? I mean, you and I have kids. A child's brain is fully malleable, and the adults around that child shape that child's worldview. It doesn't matter who they are. And when you're taught that, you know, the grass is green, yes. The sky is blue, yes. The earth is round, yes. Eternal hell's waiting for you unless you say a prayer, yes. Like it's just one of those things that like is just brought into the world of objective truth, right? The Bible is God's word to us, yes. Gravity exists, yes. Like that's how it is. And so the indoctrination, the reason why it's successful is because it's indoctrination, not because we're like, oh, I know this is dumb, but I'm going to believe it anyway, right? You don't know what you don't know. And by the way, that goes for any worldview, right? Anyone of any persuasion, religious or not, can be indoctrinated into beliefs that ultimately are not truthful or that can cause harm. In our case, a lot of the theology we were given, it's not that it was presented as an option, it was presented as absolute fact about how the universe functions. And that's my biggest gripe, right? Looking back on my childhood, it's not that I was taught about hell at a young age, although that is, in my opinion, dangerous. It's that I was taught about hell in a way that was so objectively true that I would be panicking at night thinking about my body burning forever in hell. Because that's what was going to happen to me unless I was a Christian, which then caused me to pray the prayer over and over and over again just to make sure, because I don't want to end up burning in hell forever, because forever is a really long time. That's the problem.
Right. And I think that is the fruit of that theology. Like if you genuinely believe it, you're going to be riddled with anxiety.
Right.
And you're going to be militant about trying to save as many people from hell as possible, which is how we were and how my family was. And it's not just the parents that are doing this. It's the entire environment. It's churches, it's the pastors, it's Christian movies, Christian radio, Christian music. I was homeschooled. I went to Christian schools. Like literally every avenue where you could learn anything is rooted in the exact same belief system.
It's
so you
reinforcing.
You never have a reason to doubt, because it's not just, well, my parents are saying this, so are all my friends' parents.
And all the books that you read, right? So this is why I call it the basement of Christianity, because when you're down there, you're taught this is all there is. Every book that you read, even from people that you think might be more progressive, which is really such an illusion in this space. Like, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. When I read Francis Chan's book, Erasing Hell, okay, I was like, okay, Francis Chan, you know, he's not John MacArthur. He's not this like hard-line burn or churn kind of person. So if anyone's gonna have a different view on hell, it would be Francis, because he's way more loving. And when you read the book and he essentially says, I think it's pretty clear that hell is eternal conscious torment, you go, well, I guess that's the answer then. I guess there's no other way to see this, because he's my other option for another Christian voice in this space, right? So every author you're reading, every piece of theology you're inhaling, it's all within a certain barrier that leads to those conclusions one way or another. Either directly, turn or burn, that's like your Paul Washer, John MacArthur types, right? Or your Francis Chan's. The God's love is so crazy for you, but also apart from God is eternal conscious torment, because the Bible is clear, because we take the Bible so seriously. So either way, you're getting back to the same conclusion, and that can kill curiosity. Because what happens is, and this is my big beef, or one of my big problems with evangelicalism, it's not that they're afraid of questions, right? They love the questions. As long as you arrived to their predetermined answers. That's the key. Yes, Tim, let's talk about LGBTQ plus inclusion. That's a great question. Let's wrestle through it. But we all know the answer in our back pocket. God doesn't affirm, the gay lifestyle, and the Bible's clear. So you can ask the
Right.
question. It's when you start entertaining a different answer that you then become problematic to that world of fundamentalism.
Yeah, it completely lacks curiosity, and it lacks nuance. It's a very black and white belief system. There's clear right and there's clear wrong, and there's no in between.
Yeah.
And anything in between is lukewarm. Oh,
Totally.
lukewarm was used as this, like, it could be like the most derogatory word you could call another Christian. Because
Totally.
and it's based on that verse where God's like, you have to be either hot or cold, or I'll spit you out of my mouth, which is interesting because I guess you could just be cold. But anyway, regardless of it, it's like you have to either be all in, or you might go to hell.
That's right. Pick a side, right?
Yeah.
You're either for us or you're against us. So, yeah, I mean, that was kind of a rabbit hole, but I think it's important to explore because it all plays a part into the end times theology and rapture theology that many of us were around. And again, I was someone who I was not taught that directly at home. My dad was not warning me about the rapture, but I still picked up so much of that ideology just by being in the world through different pieces of media, different authors. Okay, last thought, and then we can watch some of these trailers. But I agree with you that what I would say, April, is that the world we grew up in was not authentically curious, right? They were curious to a point. Once you hit the wall, your curiosity had to stop, right? So, like, for example, there's plenty of different views about the end times and evangelicalism. Some people believe that, the rapture will happen now, maybe it will happen later after the tribulation.
Pre-trib, mid-trib, or post-trib.
Exactly.
And I remember, I remember there was a guy in youth group who was mid-trib or post-trib. I don't know. He wasn't pre-trib. And if you were not pre-trib, it was a red flag.
Not a good life partner, guaranteed.
We might be unequally yoked.
Yeah,
if
totally,
I'm pre-trib and you're mid-trib or post-trib.
But I think that's a good example of the level of curiosity, right? Sure, you can have different views on the tribulation, but the tribulation is definitely going to happen. That part is not debatable. Just a matter of when and how, right? So,
yeah, I remember, and also even since deconstructing out loud, I've had people from my evangelical world reach out and and their message initially is like, I remember there was a Southern Baptist worship pastor who reached out to me and was like, April, I agree on so much of what you say. I would just love to have a good faith conversation and learn your side and, come together and meet in the middle because I think we need to bridge these gaps and blah, blah, blah. And so I had received a lot of these messages by this point and had several conversations that were not in good faith. Right. And so I just was very blunt back and I was just like, hey, I would love to have a good faith conversation if it's actually a good faith conversation and you genuinely want to hear my side. And I was like, and I have to be honest with you, I'm not really interested in hearing your side because I know your side because I come from that side. But if you we can still have the conversation, but if your intention is to try to get me to come back to believe what you believe, I'm not interested. Yep. And he never responded.
No, of course not. I had my old Sunday school teacher do this. He messaged me on Facebook. It started out all cordial. Once I pushed back, he essentially got so mad at me, he called me not a real Christian, and then he blocked me. I'm like, well, there it is. This is not about good faith. You're actually just trying to convert me back to what you believe. And what they'll do so often, April, is they'll be like, well, you're not hearing my side. I'm like, because I know your side. I grew up believing and preaching your side. I know your side better than you know your side,
I know.
It's almost like the multi-level marketing people who are like, hey girl, haven't talked to you in a while, but we should get a cup of coffee and catch up. It's like, well, what do you want? And it turns out, they're doing some multi-level marketing thing and they want you to be a part of it. It's like, that's how it feels sometimes, Hey bro, it's been a while. I hope everything is great. We should catch up sometime. I want to hear more about your journey. That's just a red flag all the way through of, I think you're problematic and I want to bring you back into the fold.
Oh my gosh, I know. After Beecher came out, there were so many people reaching out to them.
Imagine.
And one person I think was also a pastor. It's funny how they're always pastors. Beecher, I just don't understand. Help me understand because all these verses, blah blah blah. And so Beecher and I made we made a 13 episode podcast where we tell our entire marriage story of coming to grips with Beecher being non-binary and how it helped our marriage. But it was definitely not an easy journey coming out of evangelicalism. And so, but we did it for the intention of, we know people are going to ask, how did you get here? And we're like, well, hey, we have our whole story on this podcast. If you really are curious and want to learn. And so Beecher said that hey, man, I understand that you have questions. Like if you really want to learn more, here is a podcast that goes into very detail. It's not that long. You know, and then I'm happy to talk with you about it if you want to listen to it. And the guy responded, he was like, "Oh, I don't have time for podcasts these days." I'm like, okay.
Then you
don't actually want to know.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, why don't we show the audience some of the media that you and I were consuming around the Rapture? There's a few doozies out there. I mean, look, one of the older ones that I was not alive for is Thief in the Night. I have that trailer here. But the ones I remember the most are the Kirk Cameron Left Behind movies. So I thought maybe we could watch a few of those trailers and get your feedback, April. See what you think. Okay.
Oh, so trigger warning.
Yeah, trigger warning. And friends, if you're listening on podcasts, you should still be able to get a good sense of what's happening. But I do recommend heading over to YouTube so you can actually see the whole trailer. Also, there's a very good chance that this video will get demonetized because YouTube is so strict with anything that involves music. So if you want to support the work that we do and help us out with the show, super chats are always welcomed. So this is the Left Behind, the first one, because there's three movies.
The one with Kirk Cameron.
Yeah. Okay. This is kind of the one that I think kind of broke through into some kind of mainstream appeal. Here we go.
It's time to change history.
Unbelievable. The whole world turned upside down.
What if?
Baby, did you see him?
This is insane. People don't just disappear.
What's next, huh?
You knew.
The people are missing. Dozens of seats empty.
What's going on, Captain?
This
How do you hide from something like this?
was about to happen.
I am standing in the middle of an all-out attack.
Prepare to witness
Are you telling me that they're dead? That they're not coming back?
an ancient prophecy
Thousands of years completed.
It's written in the scriptures, I guarantee it.
about to become true.
What's coming?
It's gonna get a lot worse.
Based on the New York Times bestseller,
They're not here. They're not anywhere.
Left Behind.
You've used our dreams against us.
Nobody just walked off this airplane. We are at 37,000 feet.
I don't know if they're dead or lost.
Or even worse, will more of us disappear?
The sun is gone. Fire is raining from the sky.
Fear.
When is the last time you slept?
I'm gonna get you to a safe house.
Deception.
In the garden, there was a serpent.
Do you know who you're dealing with?
Do you?
Oh, that's the Antichrist.
Nikolai.
I knew your message. I knew your words.
Left Behind. The movie.
All of it's true.
Seeing is believing.
There you go. Intense.
That is something.
That is something, right?
I watched all those. There were a few of those.
Oh yeah, no, hey, we're not done. I have the second trailer for Left Behind 2. It's called Tribulation Force.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's probably
let's
when
watch
the
that one.
guillotine comes out. Okay.
This one has a lot more of the Antichrist stuff in here, okay?
Nikolai Carpathia.
Yes, which, by the way, I want to say props to these movie creators. Nikolai is a very white European man, so that's good. Because if it was made today by Christian nationalists, it'd be some probably queer person or something, you know? So
Yeah.
I'm happy that they stuck to the original source material and kept the guy very white. All right, here we go. Second
You can't
trailer.
change the events of the Bible. The Antichrist will rule.
In the darkest of times.
The Bible makes it clear the Antichrist will hunt down and kill every Christian he can find.
You know,
Okay, can we just pause there? I mean, the opening scene of this trailer is people just getting gunned down and someone saying that the Antichrist wants to kill every Christian he can find. This is why there's a huge persecution kink in American evangelical Christianity, because they believe this. They believe that at any moment, people in government, unless it's Trump or MAGA, are going to try and hunt them down and kill them. Which, can I just say, is really ironic, because right now the Trump administration is actually targeting a lot of Christians with these deportation orders. So it is really interesting watching our brown-skinned Christian immigrant neighbors being kidnapped in this country, and suddenly white evangelicals aren't worried about Christian persecution. I just think that's really telling.
There was a couple of Iranian asylum seekers who were Christian who escaped because they were facing actual Christian persecution in Iran.
Right.
And ICE arrested them.
Yep. Okay. Just wanted to say that. All right,
Well, okay. Well, and
go ahead.
let me just say too, the reason why it doesn't. I do think most people who believe in the rapture are pre-trib. That's the more mainstream belief that we get raptured up before the Great Tribulation.
Right.
But we always knew there was a chance that it could be mid-trib or post-trib because you don't know when the rapture is actually going to happen.
Right.
So there was always this, we were always suspicious of peace, of deals that would bring peace in the Middle East, because that's a sign of the Antichrist.
Yep.
So you're suspicious of peace, like peace is good, but you don't want too much peace because then you're like, oh no, tribulation time. And then also the Christian persecution could be signs that maybe we are in the tribulation and that the rapture just hasn't happened yet.
Yep. So you can see how violence in the Middle East is actually a good thing in this worldview, because it means that, we're not in the tribulation just yet, so the rapture hasn't happened yet. It's really wild.
World of despair.
Find someone to blame.
God is dead. There are those you must trust.
None of this is easy, but we have a calling now, and we gotta stick together.
To lead the way.
I've been praying, and I know this is the way to go.
For those facing the tribulation, they must trust in God.
There is only one person that can save you from your sins, one Messiah.
From the makers of Left Behind, Cloud 10 Pictures proudly presents Kirk Cameron, Brad Johnson, Chelsea Noble, and Clarence Gilliard, Left Behind 2.
What we have to do is fight him, all of us, together, form our own tribulation force, and spread God's word.
In the face of the ultimate deceiver.
Do we have a deal?
They'll need the strength to work together, the courage to stand alone.
Maybe God wants you to make a sacrifice, Chloe. Maybe God wants you to let God go.
And their faith to see them through.
God will protect me. Just pray.
I did. I asked him to bring me home.
Left Behind 2.
Left Behind 2.
Tribulation Force.
There it is. Oh yeah, classic.
They're making new ones too. I think there was a newer one that came out recently, I thought. Hold on.
I have that one too.
Yeah, in 2023.
I have
with
that.
Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah. Oh, I have that one. I have that trailer.
Rise of the Antichrist.
Yes, it's this one. I have it. Don't you worry. April, I know how to research, okay? There's actually two trailers here. And this, Kevin Sorbo, something else. So, so this idea still lives deeply in many of the imaginations of evangelicals. Here's the more updated full. Now this is widescreen HD, because those other trailers were just full screen, low res. Here's what happened 2 years ago.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
If someone had told me that millions of people were just going to disappear, I, like you, would have said they were crazy.
Was it the rapture?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Are you sure? I mean, are you really sure?
I saw it happen.
Those weren't vanishings.
It wasn't the rapture. The rapture was debunked on the first day.
The second wave of vanishings has thrown the financial markets back into chaos.
Trust me. You want to make sure you're on the right team. You're already teaching them the art of fake news.
I just wish I could see you one more time. Why are you still here?
Because I asked God to leave me behind.
We don't need to look for magic. We're not a bunch of religious wackos.
Wackos like my mom.
Fortunately, we have a solution. We can implement Eat and Pay worldwide in a matter of weeks.
Whoa, okay, Eat and Pay. This is like the one world government setup.
And the mark of the beast.
Eat and Pay.
The mark of the beast. So a key element of rapture lore, especially Left Behind lore, but it's also part of just the theology, is that during the Great Tribulation, you will not be able to buy or sell food unless you have the mark of the beast, which is, I was taught it was a 666 on your forehead or your back of the hand.
Or a barcode or something,
Yes. Mm-hmm. So you've seen in the last several decades, there have been so many just like fear freakouts over various things that they claimed being the mark of the beast. One being most recently the COVID vaccine. So some claimed that was the mark of the beast. And barcodes. When barcodes first became a thing, people thought that's the mark of the beast.
And credit cards.
Product. Yep. credit cards. There's been a bunch of things that have been accused of being
anything
the mark
that
of the
moves
beast.
us away from a cashless society is seen as a potential mark of the beast. So Apple Pay, mark of the beast. Oh, it's all going in our phones for the one world government where they can see all of our information. Mark of the beast. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Welcome to the future.
I gotta look inside the Eden Pay platform, and it's a whole lot more than a glorified bank card.
So you're just admitting to being crazy?
Yes, I'm quite comfortable with that.
When it is all over, half the world will be dead.
This is the biggest news story since the vanishing.
You listen to me. You drag this line of nonsense into the public eye. We're both finished.
Now I'm more like an actor.
The Antichrist will declare himself as God.
Seemed like a stretch even for them.
How do we know who we can trust?
Trust God.
The world is suffering. We are on the brink of mass insanity.
What happens to the rest of us?
Doesn't it seem strange that it's still so easy to dismiss it, even though we saw it?
You know what's so funny?
Eyes.
You know what's so funny about this is that it says in this trailer that the Antichrist will declare himself as God. And I keep thinking about all the different connections that Trump has made to him being called by God, anointed by God, him posting a video of him as a golden statue in the middle of Gaza. Like, if anyone is going to fit that archetype, it's going to be Trump. Like there are literal books. I have them on my shelf. I wish I had them handy. There are so many books. I own 2 of them that compare Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, that compare Donald Trump to a new Messiah, to like Jesus Christ 2.0. And they're real. They're real.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other president ever that has that kind of like Messiah complex tied to him. It's uncanny.
No, I know. That's honestly the only thing that there's a little piece of me that's like, well, maybe. Maybe it's true. Because all the signs that I was taught to be like mindful of and to watch out for, Donald Trump embodies an eerie amount of them. I mean, a head wound. Survived a head wound.
Miraculously. I mean, Ben Shapiro at Turning Point USA, America Fest last year said it was the divine hand of God that moved Trump's head just enough so he wasn't killed. So he miraculously, survived the head wound. There are so many. If you and I still believed in this as emphatically as maybe we once did, we could easily make this show about how Donald Trump is the very thing that so many of these evangelicals are scared of. And they are all about it. They love him. They love Trump. Oh, the irony.
I don't know if you were ever taught this too, but there's also this verse in the Bible too that says that the Antichrist, the false prophet, the big end times villain, would deceive, if possible, even the elect.
Yes.
And that verse was used to say, like, hey, Christians, you're not off the hook. You might be deceived by the Antichrist. It says right here, if possible, which means it might be possible. And I'm just like, you all also like they wear hats.
Oh yeah. Talk about a mark.
Make America Great Again. Mark.
The mark of the beast,
I don't know. I don't believe it, but then, like, honestly, this whole last 6 months has been very triggering to my rapture anxiety, because I'm like, I don't believe it, but the body remembers, and I'm seeing Donald Trump posted pictures of himself with a golden statue, and then all these Christians are just like cheering him on as he's arresting Iranian asylum-seeking Christians, and they're like, woo, yeah, Donald Trump, we love you. And he's making money off of Bibles.
Like millions off of Bibles. He has his own Bible. The man has his own Bible. Could you imagine if Joe Biden tried to sell his own Bible? You know how they would be, oh my God, this is blasphemous. It's sacrilegious. They hate Christianity. They're just trying to profit off of it. Trump does it. Oh, bravo, bravo, bravo. And this goes back to what you said earlier. The contradictions in this world, the blatant cognitive dissonance in this world, it's unbelievable. I mean, Joe Biden was either Sleepy Joe and was so weak he could barely govern, or he was so powerful, he was the most radical president we ever had, who was going to take away all of your rights. You know, Donald Trump is the very thing that they say that they're against, and they worship him like he's Christ 2.0, but also he's just a man. And no, it's not what you think. Give me a break.
I saw like full-on novels written on Facebook on why Joe Biden was the Antichrist, and the same thing with Barack Obama.
Oh, totally.
Or far less for far less. If Joe Biden or Barack Obama did 1% of the things Donald Trump was doing, these evangelicals would be losing their minds. They would storm the Capitol again.
As we wrap up, I just need to read this description about from the book President Donald J. Trump, the Son of Man, the Christ. This is a real book. This is the description in the Amazon on the Amazon webpage. Here's what it says. During the presidency of President Donald Trump, it became evident to me that the prophecies about the Son of Man, as predicted by Jesus in the Bible, were, to a significant extent, fulfilled at the hands of Mr. Trump. The Bible speaks about two different Christs, or Messiahs. Jesus, the Son of God, is the one Christ, whereas the Son of Man is the other. Jesus always referred to the Son of Man in the third person. The greater distinction or significance between the Son of Man and the Son of God, the Lamb, is their respective positions at the throne of God. There are numerous differences between the Son of God and the Son of Man, but overall, people read these scriptures and they do not realize that the Son of God, the Lamb, stands in front of the throne of God, whereas the Son of Man is positioned on the right hand of God. Jesus spoke about two different killings in the four Gospels of the New Testament. People read these scriptures and are unaware that Jesus, the Son of God, predicted his own killing in the first person, as opposed to the several prophecies that he made in respects to the Son of Man who will be crucified. I mean, this is a real book. This book will explain in depth how Donald John Trump's full name literally means the ruler of the world, graced by Yahweh the Lord, and a descendant of a drummer. Upon reading this book, the reader will be captivated when they realize how President Donald John Trump fulfilled most of the prophecies as the Son of Man. It's unbelievable. These are real books.
I want to point out, too, I sent you the link so you can have the graphic, but that most recent Left Behind movie, one of their advertising strategies, like mottos, was that it said, based on a true story that hasn't happened yet.
Get out of here. Oh my God.
So, and that's not being tongue in cheek. You know, like Fargo, I don't know if you ever watched Fargo, the show, or the movie, but it says like, this is a true story. It's not a true story, but it's just, this is not that though. Like the people that make these movies genuinely believe it's a true story that just hasn't happened yet. Wow. And that is, that's a problem.
True.
You're now presenting this insane theology that everyone is either on God's side or Satan's side, and there's no middle ground. And you're presenting it as fact, as this is factual. This is a true theology and absolute truth.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
I know.
Yep. And this ideology, whether we like it or not, drives a lot of U.S. foreign policy. Again, people can go to the podcast episode on TNE that we just dropped that will go into all the details. But people like Mike Huckabee, Israel's the ambassador to Israel, believes in this stuff. Ted Cruz believes in this stuff. J.D. Vance, to a degree, believes in this stuff. Like, these are folks who believe this is really going to happen. They're on the lookout for all these things to be fulfilled, and they're in charge of American foreign policy. And again, that's why we're covering it, right? This isn't some fringe ideology that is just some dark corner of the internet that we're poking fun at. People in real positions of power believe this stuff, and it influences and impacts the lives of millions of people around the world. So, yep.
Yeah. Do you remember that song too? That was like, there's no time to change your mind. The sun has come and you've been left behind.
Yes. DC Talk covered it, and that's how I knew it. It was live. I wish we'd all been ready. Yeah, that's it. Been ready. Yeah. I don't sing on the show. You do that. For good reason.
The drama.
Well, I mean, friends, I would love to know what you think if you've been taught about rapture theology. So, of course, make sure you leave a comment below. If you're listening on podcast, we'd love to hear your feedback. You can email us at the Tim and April Show at thenewevangelicals.com. But I think this is a pretty successful recap of our experience with the rapture.
I know. It doesn't even, we didn't even get into the hell houses or the kidnapping of the youth to take them to see a thief in the night.
We got to save hell houses for October. That's Halloween.
Yeah. Well, buckle up.
Yeah, we have so much content. All right, friends. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. I'm Tim.
I'm April.
See ya.